Today, we are diving deeper into a shift in global diplomacy that's reshaping the relationships between the West and China. Western leaders, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, and France's Emmanuel Macron, have been engaging Beijing in a series of high-level visits aimed at expanding cooperation despite rising tensions with the United States. We are going to look at what's happening, why it matters, and what it could mean for NATO, for President Trump's America, and for the future of global alliances. Starmer has just completed the first UK prime ministerial visit to China in 8 years.
So whiskey, we're looking at how they're to be reduced, what the time frame is, visa-free travel, how far, how much, and when that can start, and on the information exchange on small boats, the cooperation that we need, within a dialogue actually about greater strategic focus on security and defence.
Sealing trade-related agreements and new visa agreements. And in Washington, President Donald Trump has warned publicly that it is very dangerous for close allies to do businesses with Beijing. This dynamic has deepened ties with China amid public U.S. pushback is the defining geopolitical story of early 2026.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you.
Now, what's happening now? Let's start with the facts. In late January, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Their talks produced tangible outcomes, reduced Chinese tariffs on British goods, visa-free travel for UK citizens, and also commitments by major British companies to invest in China. Canada's Mark Carney had already traveled to Beijing earlier in January. He met Xi and other senior officials there. Ottawa and Beijing, they reaffirmed strategic partnerships built on mutual respect and expanded economic cooperation. France, under Emmanuel Macron, has strengthened cooperation with China as well. During a December visit, Macron and Xi reinforced commitments on climate, nuclear energy, and multilateral engagements. And across Europe, leaders from Finland, Ireland, and soon Germany have joined this trend of renewed engagement with Beijing. This marks a shift from the post-Cold War era, when Western policy towards China was largely shaped by the United States. At the same time, President Donald Trump has been openly critical. He told the reporters that it is very dangerous for allies like the United Kingdom to deepen business ties with China.
Mr. President, what do you think about the UK getting into business with China? Keir Starmer was in Beijing.
Well, it's very dangerous for them to do that, and it's even more dangerous, I think, for Canada to get into business with China. Canada is not doing well. They're doing very poorly, and you can't look at China as the answer. I know China very well. I know President Xi's a friend of mine. I know him very well, but that's a big hurdle to go over when you get Canada. The first thing they're going to do is say you're not allowed to play ice hockey anymore. That's not good. Canada's not going to like it.
This warning isn't just talk. It reflects a broader Trump strategy of economic nationalism and confrontation with Beijing. But there is a contradiction here. The White House has acknowledged that the U.S. was aware of Starmer's objectives in advance, and Trump himself is reportedly considering a state visit to China later this year. So, on the one hand, the U.S. is pushing a hard line. On the other, it is signaling willingness to engage at the highest level. This inconsistency weakens the message and complicates allies' responses. Now, why Western leaders are engaging China? Big question, right? So, leaders like Starmer, Carney, and Macron engaging China at this moment is a big question. There are several reasons. First, China remains the world's second largest economy. For countries seeking growth, trade opportunities, new markets for exports, and investments, engaging Beijing makes economic sense. For the UK, access for services, finance, and also industries like whisk is a boost to long-term growth. And second, hedging against US unpredictability. Trump's tariffs policies and confrontational rhetoric have left allies uncertain about America's long-term strategic intentions. By diversifying diplomatic and economic ties, leaders aim to avoid overdependency on a single partner. Third, there is the issue of strategic autonomy. Francis Macron has long called for Europe to pursue its own interests, balancing security cooperation with the United States and economic cooperation with China. This isn't simply really politique, it's a recognition that the global system is no longer unipolar. Now, let's talk about NATO. NATO was born as a security alliance focused on collective defense. It was never designed as a vehicle for economic policy. But when allies pursue deferring China strategic, it exposes a strategic divergence within the alliance. For example, Germany's foreign minister recently reaffirmed that Germany remains closer to the United States for security, even as it diversifies economic ties. That distinction, security with the US, economic engagement with China, may well become the pattern. But it also raises important questions. Can NATO maintain unity if member states balance economic interests with a rival great power? Can common security cooperation coexist with divergent Chinese policies? These are debates NATO must confront if it hopes to remain cohesive in a changing world. There are really risks in this approach. Critics argue that economic engagement without strong guardrails can expose sensitive technologies, intellectual property, and even national security infrastructure. And then there is the political dimension. Trump's public criticism may resonate with voters at home, making these diplomatic moves controversial in domestic politics. Leaders like Starmer have to balance economic opportunity with national security and maintain credibility with both their own publics and their allies. So, what does all this mean? We may be witnessing a more complex global order than we have seen since the end of the Cold War. One where the United States remains the central to security. Europe and the other Western allies seek economic diversification. And China plays a major role in global markets and diplomacy. This does not necessarily mean the West is fractured. Rather, it suggests a shift to a multipolar strategy where countries seek both cooperation and competition with major powers. NATO may still hold fast on defense, but on economic engagement, especially with China, we are seeing a recalibration of priorities and alliances. In the end, what we are seeing isn't betrayal or abandonment. It's the adaptation. Leaders are trying to secure economic growth, strategic stability, and influence in an evolving world. But they are doing it in a way that challenges all the assumptions about Western unity. The question now isn't just who will lead the West. It is how the West will lead itself in a world shaped by China, by economic interdependence, and by engaging power dynamics. And that question will define global geopolitics for years to come. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.